Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and I am sorry that once again I'm coming to you a day late with a video, although this time I actually do have a good excuse other than just YouTube taking way too long to upload my videos, and that is that if you hear my voice you might be able to tell I was sick over the weekend. I'm still not 100% perfect, but I'm not as bad as I was over the weekend, and so over the weekend there was absolutely nothing that I felt like less than putting on makeup and sitting down to film. So yeah, that's why I'm doing this now and a day late. I hope you don't mind. But anyway, today's video is going to be my February wrap-up, my whole February wrap-up. I already did a mid-month wrap-up. I won't talk about the books that I talked about in that video, so if you want to know what I read in the first half of the month, I will leave that video linked down below and linked up here on one of the sides. Anyway, and yeah, let me just jump right into it with some stats. First, I read a total of 6 books this month. One of those was a reread, 2 were DNFs, and 3 were books that I actually finished. So comparing that with my January wrap-up, that's quite a bit less actually. Of the 6 books that I read, 4 were adult and 2 were YA, 4 were high fantasy, 1 was urban/historical fantasy, and 1 book was dystopian / I think Afrofuturism. I'm not 100% sure if this book counts into that genre, but the author that wrote the book is quite well known for writing Afrofuturism books. So my guess would be that that is the accurate genre. I read about 2,500 pages this month, so not only did I read less books than in January, I also read quite a bit of like thinner books. So yeah, but it's whatever. So now for ratings, this part as always will be without my rereads. And I did not rate either of my DNFs, and that's not because I think I shouldn't rate my DNFs, but I had specific reasons for both of the books. I talked about why I didn't rate Scavenge the Stars in my mid-February wrap-up, so if you want to know why I didn't rate that one, you will have to watch that video. But the second DNF I didn't rate because I think I might continue it in the future, so it felt wrong to rate it at this point, even if it's a DNF for me now. And as for the 3 books that I finished, 2 of them were 4 stars and 1 was a 2-star, so that doesn't sound too bad. And like counting in Scavenge the Stars, because that's how I decided to do this month's average rating, that however does come to a 2.5 star rating, so like not too great. And even if I do not count Scavenge the Stars, if I just count the 3 books that I actually finished, that still only comes to a 3.3 star rating this month. So yeah, average rating, not too good this month. So now on to the books that I have not yet talked about in my mid-February wrap-up, of course going by rating. So I will start with my DNF since I did not rate this book, and that is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. This is the first book in a dystopian. I think it's a duology and not like a trilogy. This is set in a post-apocalyptic Africa where there's 2 people, the Okeke and the Nuru, and both of them believe in the same great book, which I guess would be kind of their Bible. And according to this great book, the Okeke are supposed to be the slaves of the Nuru. However, some time ago, a few Okeke weren't really all that happy with their place as slaves, so they did rebel against that and they kind of went and did their own thing. And now Nuru are basically committing genocide. And we follow our main character Onyesumu, who is the daughter of an Okeke woman who was raped by a Nuru man. And because of that, she kind of has special magical powers that might help her to save the Okeke in the future. That's what I gathered from as far as I got. I got about halfway through the audiobook because I did listen to that via audiobook, which I can, by the way, highly recommend. The narrator is in fact African, I think. I would not know exactly where from in Africa because I cannot really distinguish the different dialects that much, obviously. I can barely distinguish different British dialects, but I really enjoyed it, and I found that that really helped me immerse myself into this world and into this story because, as you know, usually narrators in audiobooks are either American or British, so like it was kind of a nice thing to have a different nationality or a different heritage for an audiobook narrator. I hope you kind of get where I'm coming from and what I mean with that. And now to the reason why I DNF'd this book. First of all, I want to say that the reason why I DNF'd this book absolutely had nothing to do with this being a bad book. I could tell while listening to the audiobook, I got about halfway through, as I said, that it's a very well told story. The way I found it is it was kind of very simply written, but that just was necessary to bring across the story. But the reason why I did not finish it, but why I might finish it in the future, is that I found this book to be very depressing and very dark. And not dark in a way where, for example, grimdark fantasy is dark, or dark in a way where a lot of fantasy is dark in general, but just dark in a way where just everything seemed very bleak in this story. And then the second reason why I DNF'd this book, at least for now, is that I just really couldn't connect to the main character. Onyesumu is a very angry main character, and I personally do not like that in main characters. I do not like people who always think the worst of others, and it's understandable from her background, because she has been judged, she has been bullied for her whole life because of her conception, because of the fact that she is the result of her mom being raped. However, I just don't like reading about those main characters, even if I can understand where they're coming from, because it's just the exact opposite of everything I am and of everything I feel that I am. So it just depresses me reading about those main characters, and perhaps that's a bad reason for DNFing a book, and I do intend to maybe pick it up in the future again to continue on with this book and at least finish this first book. However, I just have to say that even though I can tell this is a very well written book and a very well constructed story, and Onyesumu is a very strong and amazing main character, at the end it's just really not for me, and that kind of made me sad. So yeah, that's why I DNF'd this, and the reason again why I didn't rate this book is because I might pick it up again in the future, so I felt wrong rating it at this point. And then the last book I finished in February was A Heart so Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer, which is the second book in the Cursebreaker series. The first book was A Curse so Dark and Lonely, and after I finished A Curse so Dark and Lonely and found out that this is a series, I already said this should have been a standalone. A Curse so Dark and Lonely should have been a standalone, and I was right. This was the worst sequel that I have ever read, and I only finished it because it's incredibly easy to read. First of all, in A Curse so Dark and Lonely, we have a Beauty and the Beast retelling. We have Prince Ren, who was cursed to relive the same season over and over again, and at the end of the season he turns into a monster who just doesn't recognize anyone and goes on a rampage. And when the season restarts, even if he dies in the season, he lives again, but everyone else who he has killed dies. And the only way to break a curse, of course, Beauty and the Beast retelling, is to find a girl who will fall in love with him. And this is where our second main character in the first book, Harper, comes in. She is kind of kidnapped to Ren's castle, and yeah, she is from our world, she's from the modern world, and she has to fall in love with him to stop the curse. And the second book, I won't say how it continues on, because that would be spoilers, of course, for the first book. However, the reason why I found it so incredibly bad is because, first of all, the characters made absolutely nonsensical decisions. Like, this would actually have been a good book if you ignore the first one, or like a decent book if you ignore the first one. But considering what happened in the first one, considering the way the characters were set up in the first one, considering the way the relationships between the characters were set up in the first one, every single decision that is made at the beginning of this book by any of the characters makes absolutely no sense, because it's completely against their characters, it's completely against any sense or reason why anyone in here would do that. And yeah, it's just... that really upset me, that really made me not like it. One of the main characters from the other book is suddenly made out to be this huge villain, which like makes no sense. Then decisions they made in the first book, which were then praised and like amazing, you made these decisions to save everyone else, suddenly are made out to be horrible decisions in this book, which, like, why? Why did you do that? And yeah, so I did not like that. Also in this book we follow two other characters, one of the side characters from the first book, as well as a new character, and the new main female character in this book. I mean, Harper was a pretty tropey character. However, she did have cerebral palsy representation, and also I still found her to be interesting. She at least had this thing going for her of like being someone from the modern world suddenly put into like this medieval Renaissance kind of world. However, our main female character in this book basically was just a walking, talking trope. And she was one of those girls, oh my god, she's so different, oh my god, you're so brave. And I can't anymore with male characters in YA books constantly telling the female character, who of course has like no self-confidence at all, constantly telling that female character, oh my god, you're so brave. Like, you're just the bravest girl I have ever met. And yeah, that was a lot of that in this book. However, I will still probably continue on with the series because I did kind of like the way it ended. The ending was decent and it kind of made me curious how the series is going to continue on, which kind of annoys me even more. But yeah, the ending saved this book from being a 1.5 star and pushed it to a 2-star book. And then to the books that I'm still currently reading, of course, first of all, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which was my TBR chart pick from February, which I did not finish. I'm still about 25 pages in only, or 50 pages in only, so yeah, not that great. Still don't even know what this book is about, really. Then I'm also still currently reading book 4 in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, which is The Shadow Rising. I'm still only about 100 pages in, 120 pages in. And yeah, hopefully I will finish this in March. Then I started Ghosts of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare, which is one of the 3 short story collections set in the Shadowhunters universe realm. And I did read the first 2 of the short stories so far in this, and so I am about 140 pages into this, and I stopped with this for now though, and I will tell you in a second the reason why I stopped. And that reason is kind of, you know, in my last video how I went on this age-long rant how I can't really get English books in Austria, which is still true. However, every now and again there's books that are often, most of the time, 99% of the time, by very, very famous and well-loved YA authors, and my bookstore will just get their books like a week, 2 weeks earlier than the release date. And so I went to my bookstore to get the next book in the Witcher series, and I saw that my bookstore already had Chain of Gold, which is the first book in the Last Hour series, and so I of course had to get it. And with Cassandra Clare, in the past few years, it's been kind of funny since Queen of Air and Darkness released, because in a way, I'm just not that excited for the next book until the next book comes out and I actually have it in my hands, at which point I will read it like instantly, which is why I only read 2 books from the Ghosts of the Shadow Market series, which are the 2 stories that are kind of with characters from the Last Hours, because I did feel like I would have to read them to get the full experience of this. And also look at this, it's so floppy. Look at this in comparison. It's not floppy at all, and this is so floppy. It's amazing. Anyway, I read about 150 pages in February. I did start this in February, but I'm now almost done. But yeah, I'm kind of very excited to be done with this book before the official release date, because I will be done with this today, and tomorrow is the official release date. So yeah, very excited, and that was it for this wrap-up, I think. So if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read any of the books that I have read. I'm especially interested if you have read A Heart So Fierce and Broken, and if you think that it's as bad of a sequel as I do. Like, tell me in the comments down below what you think of that book. And with that said, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!